Start that and... Good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to Life's Journey at 50. I'm your host, Matt McCourt. And tonight, I am extremely excited because I have my first guest.
Woo!
So, and you can hear her in the background. I think Valerie's ready to go, but let me give you a little background here, and I'm going to take this little music out of here. So, our guest tonight is very accomplished. Not only is she a mother of three to, I believe, Paul, Autumn, and Michael, correct?
Yep.
Got it. All right. But she has worked for major companies. So she has worked for Clorox. She's worked for Kraft. She's worked for Playtex. She's also taught retail education at Northwest Arkansas Community College, and she is a former lecturer of management at Stephen F. Austin State University. Wow, what a background. So let's welcome live from Jacksonville, Florida, our guest this evening, Valerie Wilson. Hi, Val.
Hey, what is going on? Sounds like you've been doing some research on LinkedIn.
Well, you know, when you do this, you got to kind of like, you got to do a little something.
Yeah, you better do some homework. That's right.
Right. Even though you and I just talked a little bit, I didn't ask you all those questions. I had to go out and do a little research of my own. We do live in the world of Google. So.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
have you ever Googled yourself?
Yeah, well, no, I don't really want to. No, please no. So, no. For my audience out there, I've known Val. We've known each other for probably a good 6, 7, 8 years, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe.
I'm thinking it's a decade.
Oh, it's been
maybe
longer.
It doesn't.
I don't know.
Yeah,
you know how.
like
Hey, time flies when you're having fun. Correct?
No, got that right. Got that right.
Yeah. So Val and I have known each other for a while, and she currently is in a leadership role at her company. And she is one of the top industry folks that you go to. She is, and I'm just going to give you a little bit about it because we're going to talk a little bit different subject. We're going to talk life, right, Val? And
yeah,
but
life, not work, life.
Not work, but a little bit about her work is that she is absolutely a fantastic person in her field. The company she works for is in consumer insights. Big data, technology, retail focused, manufacturer focused, and she leads a team, and she's done numerous roles in that organization and does a fantastic job. So, again, Val, just a lot of kudos to you and what you've been able to accomplish throughout the years. So that's awesome. Good for you. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, give credit where credit is due. So, yes. So the big thing, though. So my podcast and my YouTube channel, for those and I'm actually, folks, I'm actually taping this, so you'll be able to see this on my channel. It's it's Life's Journey at 50 on my YouTube channel. I'm also on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and Podbean, and you'll be able to see this. I'll post this evening, and then obviously get the video content up and running. But very excited. This is going to be about life and a journey. And Val, correct me if I'm not wrong. I think you started this concept, and everybody, Val came up with a concept called 52 by 52, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I really was intrigued by this. And then when I started up my channel, and, one of my thoughts around this channel was to talk about life and life experience. I mean, life's journey at 50, right? So 50 and beyond, and kind of like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing with our lives, right, Val? I mean, it's like, well, now we've hit this quote unquote milestone, and, we reflect a lot on life, right? And then we also think, we got a lot of life ahead of us too. And so I was really intrigued when Val told me that she wanted to do, and Val's going to walk us through this, but she wanted to do 52 new things that you've never done before, correct?
Right.
By the time she was 52. which I
That's
believe,
where it started.
and
Yeah.
I believe that's coming up in about 30 days. A little less than 30 days, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've just completed 22. I'm actually behind. Stupid COVID.
I know. So, all right, with that, folks, I don't want to hog the show. I want to turn this, I'm going to let Val start driving because I really want to know, like, how'd you come up with this concept? What inspired you? That's kind of my first question. It's a two-parter, but really, how did you come up with this concept, and what really inspired you to do this? So, give me your thoughts on all that.
All right. Well, I've moved around a little bit these last few years. I had a period of some pretty difficult, very difficult hardship. In 5 years, I lost my mom and my dad, and then my husband. And it was one of those things where, you weather a storm and think, oh, all right, I made it. And then another one would crop up. And then another one would crop up. And so, 5 years of, dealing with deep personal loss left me, just without a rudder, And, but the sole focus I had was I had 3 teenagers
Right.
left to raise. And so I, threw myself into that. I had to keep, maintain my level of employment. And, fortunately, I am, well compensated, and I was able to, string things along. So I didn't have, the financial hardship that so many other people do when they're going through these things.
Right.
But I did have, some other challenges, such as, I had to travel for work. I have project loads. I don't have a job that's, 8 to 5 where I just shut it off. That's, constant. And so what this meant was my kids had to grow up really fast. I had to, lean on them to, pick up the load and help me carry it. And the message I gave to them was, look, if you want to maintain life as you know it, don't mess this up. You
Right.
know, so that was the overarching guidance. Yeah, we're in this together, and if you like your life, don't mess it up, because I will stop this train.
Val, I mean, I know we've talked in the past, and that's a lot to handle in a 5-year period of time, right? I mean, that's a lot of loss. Obviously, you've got children you're raising. Trying to maintain a career. You're moving. That's a lot of stress. I mean, that's just a ton of stress. It puts a lot of family dynamics into play, right? And so I think, for our audience, I mean, just think about kind of a 5-year window of having to deal with a lot of that stuff. And that's not an easy load to bear. And so again, I mean, I've known you for, like you said, for a while, and really commend you on that, because a lot of people would sometimes just curl up a little bit and shelter. And you didn't. I mean, you had to soldier on, and you got 3 kids, so that's wow. Again, I commend you for that.
Yeah, trust me, there were plenty of days I was cowering in a dark corner, sucking my thumb.
Yeah, I do that once in a while now, but that's what's between you and me. Oops, I think I let that one out the bag.
Oh, you said that out loud. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. So with all that, right? I mean, that's a lot, and then obviously we're heading into like this, arena of your going to turn 52 and wanting to do these things. So was that kind of born out of this?
Yeah. So I was 45 when my husband passed away, and then I spent the next 5 years just getting through. I mean, every day was something different. 3 teenagers, and they have their own goals and aspirations and their own friends and things they're going through.
Sure.
One thing after another. And so, hitting 50 was a milestone, but we tend to think of milestones as nice, even perfect numbers. And for me, 50 was just like any other day. It's like, well, life isn't slowing down just yet.
Right.
But then I, through work, had an opportunity to move to Florida. I was living in Arkansas at the time, and, the opportunity came up, and I thought, what's the magic with Florida? America wants to retire in Florida, so why don't I go check that out? I didn't have anybody telling me no,
Right.
slowing me down. My kids I was entering empty nest. My oldest two were in college, and my youngest was living with me, and, he was as mobile as I was. So I just said, you know what, I'm gonna go for it and see if I can land this job. And so I did. And moving to Florida was I brought, part of my stuff with me, and started moving into this house that I thought, this is the first house I've ever had that I could, really make what I want it to be.
Right.
And so I started throwing myself into the house, but I still had another house I was trying to sell. And so, it's like I'm going back and forth, and just all of the noise of living in two places, really.
Oh, sure.
And so so then I got to, it was June, the last day of June, the last business day of June in 2019. So it's been a year ago. I got the last pod of my belongings. And so a lot of this too, I mean, keep in mind, both my parents had moved away, so I had stuff in storage from them that I still had to go through. So
Wow.
all that finally landed here in Florida, and I was thinking, you know what? What's holding me back from figuring out what my next step is? Because I was entering empty nest. And I looked around at all this just stuff, and I decided, all right, I'm going to spend the last 6 months of this year getting rid of all this stuff, organizing it, making sure that I have all of my house literally in order so that I can free my list every weekend. I'd come upon, well, what am I going to do this weekend? Oh, well, I have to, I got to mow, and I have to file, and I have to, file papers, and I have to, clear this out, and I have to move this around. And I thought, you know what? I'm sick of that.
Right.
I'm going to just go ahead and get all of my stuff dealt with, cleaned up, gotten rid of. I donated a ton of stuff. And I just set a goal that by the end of the year, I was not going to have any boxes left from any of my moves. I was going to go through everything that I'd had in storage. I mean, I've been hauling around stuff there were some boxes I was hauling around from my college days.
Wow.
Long time. Yeah.
That brings me to a thing because, you're talking about clearing stuff out, right? So, and not to get on a different tangent, I had read a couple of books about being a minimalist, and I started doing that first of this year. And I went through for about 3 weekends of just like clearing stuff out. To your point, I have moved around the country a little bit too. And I was finding boxes where I had, the little stickers from the movers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a couple boxes that had like 4 or 5 stickers, like from 4 or 5 different moves. And I'm like, all I've done was move a box from here, 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 and here. Like, it's time to go.
Yeah, right. And, there is the advice that, well, if you haven't looked in a box, in such number of years, then just don't even look in it. Just move it on down the road. But I thought, well, no, I don't want to do that. It's kind of cool, like a time capsule,
Right.
What was I thinking? What was I doing? What was so important to me, 25, 30 years ago that I put it in a box and moved, and that was kind of fun.
Right.
Some of the stuff was cool. It was like, oh, wow, what a great memory. Made me think about people I hadn't thought of in a long time. But then a lot of the rest of it was like, wow, what was I thinking? Why did I buy this in the first place? What a waste of money, all that stuff. So anyway, it was in this process of the clean out,
Right.
because the reason people don't want to do it is because it's just not fun and it's boring and it's all those things. So I set my mind to what's the next step. So every time I would approach, okay, I'm going to go through these 10 boxes this weekend. And I would just force myself to think about what's my next step. And then I had a conversation with a friend of mine here, and she introduced me to some of her friends, and one of them asked me a question. You know how sometimes in your life a person will say something or ask you a question that's so simple, and it just levels you.
Right.
And so anyway, this friend of hers said, "Oh, well, what do you like to do?" and I just sat there, and I was literally speechless. I just said, "Well, I work and I work out and I do food prep." Because in the absence of, kids and all the other ways that I've defined my life, I was just stunned by that simple question. And so then that threw me back into the next rounds of the simplification and the clean out into what do I like to do? I don't know that. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, really.
Right.
What are some talents I have never explored for this reason or that? Maybe I'm good at something that I never even thought about before or was shut down for one reason or another in the past, because like for me, what I've learned is that I'm a pretty good athlete at this age. Well, that was never anything that was encouraged that I could pursue as a kid.
Wow.
Because girls just didn't do that.
Right.
In the house I was raised, it was, no, girls, no, you need to learn, talents and skills that are going to move your family forward was, the way that
Old
I was
school.
brought up. And academics are important. Yeah. You need to be smart and you need to have homemaking talents,
Right.
So,
the quote
so anyway,
the quote unquote traditional roles back then.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the traditional
the world
roles,
has
yeah.
changed.
Oh,
yeah,
God, yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 30 years, it's like really we live in a different world. And so,
Oh yeah, by far.
Thankfully too, right? So,
Yeah, you and I've had a few of those conversations as well, right? I mean, progress is good. Progress is good.
yeah, yeah, it really is. I am fully convinced that we are at the apex of what could be the greatest dawn of our civilization ever. When you look at technology and people's ability to have disposable time, discretionary time
Sure.
is the better term. It's like we have choices with our time that mankind has never had before. And so I
true.
just hope that humanity doesn't spend it with, watching YouTube, videos of cats riding Roombas and stuff like that.
Or watching Life's Journey at 50 with 50-year-olds talking about life. Or wasting their time, to podcast or stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
No, it's all part of the learning. Yeah. I fully support that. Just
It's
not
all
cats
good.
riding Roombas.
That's funny.
So anyway, I was asked that question that what do I like to do? And then I really started diving into, I don't know what that is. And so, so all this was going on, and I was also I was in my 52nd year on the planet, so
Right.
as we lap our birthdays, I just closed down year 51 and I was facing year 52. And I thought, you know what? Heading into my 52nd year, I got 52 weeks. So why don't I try to do 52 new things? And so then I started percolating on that idea. Well, that's ambitious. But then the more I started to break it down, I thought, well, okay, I mean, I could read 52 new books. I could make 52 new recipes. I could do 52, athletic events, like
Sure.
marathons. And, I mean, you could break it down any way you want. So I started making lists because that's what I do. And so...
Wait a minute, you make lists for work and you do project management stuff? No, not you.
I know. I'm very list driven. I got to check boxes, man. So
Very OCD of you. Very OCD of you.
Yeah. So I started working on this list, and so then I was struck with, okay, when am I going to start this? Because starting it on my birthday wasn't feasible. I was, really kind of stumbling into the beginning of this idea, and so then I
Right.
thought, well, when's a good time to start? And then also, like you, there was the social media component of, well, do I want to do Instagram with this? Do I want to build a web page? Do I want to monetize this somehow?
Right.
I had to think through all those things. So and that was, this podcast, YouTube thing that you're doing, hats off, because man, that's a deep well. And I have just dipped my toe in it because I know what a time vortex that's going to be.
And Val, it is deeper than what I even thought. I am sometimes sinking in this thing once in a while because, to your point, this learning curve on this piece, we could have a whole nother interview around this stuff. But the learning curve on this is tremendous. It is a investment, and it's been fun. But to your point about learning stuff, it's been great. So, but I digress. I don't want to. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, all this is just blah 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 to get to what is 52 by 52. What have I been? What's it to me?
Right.
And the more I started to socialize this with people, people really liked the idea because, you can break it down to anything you want. Like, let's say that you want to go deep into a hobby, like, you play a guitar, and okay, well, I'm going to strive to learn 52 new varieties of music I've never tried before.
Right.
Or, it can be anything you want. And so, then I think it was my daughter who said, I don't really like this whole 52-year thing. She said that everybody has 52 weeks. I thought that was incredibly profound.
Mm-hmm.
She said everybody has 52 weeks, so why are you tying your age to it? She said you could do 52 by 52 the rest of your life. And I thought, well, true that. So, so this first year, I have a very broad variety of things that I'm trying. And so I have done 22 different things.
Because
I started.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I was going to. That's kind of like my second question after how you arrived at all this, right? Like, you got your inspiration. You came up with this thought, and that's, so far we're halfway through the year. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you've talked about, you've done 22 things already. And that was really my second question was, what's so far, like, what have you liked, not liked, kind of that journey and what you've done, and some of the key highlights of that. And then also, we, obviously we got COVID-19 that's impacted it,
Mm-hmm.
as you stated before. So, yeah, jump into that because that's, I want to hear some of these different things because I've seen you kind of post some things on your social media just around some of the things you've done. It looks fantastic. So, yeah, walk us through some of this.
Yeah. So, like I said, a big part of this is self-discovery and finding out what I like to do. And there's many things that I've always thought, wow, that looks cool. I'd like to know more about that, So I just started diving in. And so week one was something I'd always wanted to do, which was glass blowing.
Wow.
And as it turns out, Jacksonville University has a Bachelor of Fine Arts that specializes in glass blowing. So there's a pretty active scene here in Jacksonville. And I learned this through my commute back and forth from Arkansas the first months of my new job. There were these displays at the airport of all this, hand blown glass, and I was like, oh, I would love to do that, And so I looked them up,
cool.
And so I took a glass blowing class, and that was amazing, and then I took a knife skills class right after that because one of my limitations in cooking is I'm just not very good at using knives. And what I learned
wait a
from
minute,
that
time out.
is,
Disclaimer for our audience: do not go near Val after the knife. Just throwing it out there, folks.
Yeah, that's
She's
right.
had a
I've got
knife skills
12-inch chef
class.
knife, man. Yeah. I can poke you with a hot poker, and I can come after you with a chef's knife.
Hey now, easy there,
That's 2 weeks
Tiger.
in.
She'll be able to
Yeah,
slice and dice. All right, I got you.
exactly.
Stay away from
So,
Val now. Okay.
yeah, so I, let's see, knife skills, and then after that, jump rope. Did a jump rope clinic because
Wait a minute. A jump rope clinic.
Yeah. So I really I still need to learn how to do double unders, so that's where the rope passes under your feet twice for every jump.
Huh?
And it's a big deal in the CrossFit community. Yeah, you got to be able to do dubs, man.
Dubs.
Dubs.
I'm used to dubs like kind of 3-pointers, by the NBA players. That's dubs. I go watch Golden State Warrior games and stuff, and I see, Steph Curry throwing up some dubs, Splash Brothers, that type of thing. So you're telling me that when I jump up in the air, I'm supposed to get that rope underneath me twice?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not happening. No.
Yeah.
I'm kind of considered like a tree. Like my roots are in the ground and they really don't come out above the ground. So I'm.
Yeah,
wow.
I know.
Okay,
so there's a lot to learn.
So you're learning the jump rope thing. Wow, you've got so we're on a good list here. This is a lot of kind of like some neat stuff.
Yeah. So jump rope clinic, and then after that, I did a half marathon that was really cool because it started at the Navy base. So got to see the big ships. Yeah, that was amazing.
All right, another note here. You didn't go down there for the big ships. It's a naval base. There's a bunch of young American sailor boys that are buff from working out, young. Don't give me that you were down there to see the ships. Come on now.
Well, I will say that there were some excellent specimens of American hero around that place. Yeah, it was It was pretty awesome.
All right.
All right. So
I just want to make sure I got the truth out of you. That's it. That's all we're trying to do here. We're getting to the hard facts here, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting to the hard facts here. This is truth.
What's my real motivation?
Yeah,
well,
really. Yeah.
You just figured it out. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So keep going.
Yeah. So then after that, I went to visit my daughter in Arkansas, and she said, "Oh, we have to go bouldering."
What?
Arkansas is a very rocky state. Beautiful state. But there's this one formation. It's a very steep, what they call it, a mountain. Just a big, huge hill that goes straight up. But it's these huge boulders. I don't know how it came to be, but anyway, massive boulders. And so, you just go like a mile straight up, traversing these big rocks. So you're not rock climbing. There's no hand involvement.
Wait a minute. You said a mile up?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
And then like these things, then you have to get down. And that was...
the going up part is always easy. It's the coming down that would be a little nerve-wracking, I would assume.
Yeah. I told my daughter that I'm never doing that again, and especially, what I was thinking is this was in first week into February, and I was thinking summertime. There's snakes that are going to be under these rocks.
Oh, absolutely, rattlesnakes and copperheads and everything else.
I just said, I'm never doing this again, and I don't want to hear of you doing it ever.
Part of me would be also nervous just because of knowing the storms that come ripping out of the Midwest, out of that section of the country, and get caught up in a heavy rainstorm or something, and those boulders start getting slippery, slimy, and that would.
Well, she told me she's been stuck up there a couple of times with some just bad weather that rolled through. And,
wow.
You're like a lightning rod,
sure,
running out there. I said I don't need to know that about you.
Check, done.
Yeah.